Okay, hi there. It's Jeff here again with another in our series of industry profiles. What we do is we take an industry and we look at some of the key data, some of the key issues and topics that might form the focus of some exam questions, particularly a data response question. I think also the idea behind this is to give you some good examples of industries that you can use when the exam board says using an industry or market of your choice. Examiners would love you to showcase your knowledge of the subject and add contextual application to your answers. So hopefully this series of short videos will help. Let's spend a few minutes together, if it's okay with you, thinking about the parcel industry in the UK, a fascinating market. And this is an industry which has experienced extremely fast growth in recent times. Part of kind of structural change in the economy, I guess, the email and instant messaging have seen mail declining, and the rise of e-commerce has been a key factor contributing to the surge in parcel shipments. So this market has become more contestable over the years, even though the market is dominated by some big scale businesses, a lot of price and non-price competition. And the fast growth of the sector has created lots of challenges, not least in the labour market, getting hold of staff, keeping hold of them. And the wider issue is, of course, the environmental aspects of the parcel deliveries. Your delivery might be free, but is it free in a social, environmental sense? So let's look at the industry. Let's take a few moments. There are loads of topics that could come into it. Reasons for the fast growth of parcel demand, the factors impacting on the supply elasticity of parcels, key factors affecting cost, revenues and profits in different time periods. What are the objectives of businesses? Are they all profit maximizers, or do some have different objectives, including environmental aims? The role of outsourcing in the delivery business will mention. Likewise, the importance of economies of scale, examples of price and non-price competition between the major players. The environmental impact of the courier industry needs to be considered. So too how government intervenes, and labour market issues, including supply shortages, labour supply shortages, pay and conditions. So this is just a look at, if you just bear with me a few minutes thinking about the parcel industry. Here's some of the big players, from Amazon Logistics through to Parcel Force, DPD, FedEx and Hermes. First thing, I guess, is to look at the market share. This is for 2020, and 2 years ago, Royal Mail had the highest market share in the courier market with 34%. If we go back 25 years or so, Royal Mail was essentially a monopoly, but this market is now genuinely much more contestable than it ever has been. And you can see here that Amazon Logistics with 15% is emerging as a significant big scale player in the UK parcel market. It's overtaken Hermes, DHL, UPS and others. So if you give market share data in the exam, you obviously have to think about a concentration ratio. Can you do a quick calculation? What is the 5-firm concentration ratio? If we've added together the market share of the leading 5 firms, you get a figure of 76%. So it's clearly an oligopoly in that sense. And just to give you, there's lots of stats we can look at, but just to give you a feel for this chart shows the number of paying Amazon Prime members worldwide from 2015 through to 2020. So the figure will be even higher, won't it, if we're now recording this in the spring of 2022. But by some estimates, Amazon Prime now has well over 100 million members in the United States, 200 million worldwide, and about 12-13 million in the UK. This is a huge number. So the parcel service industry in the UK is probably best described as a contestable oligopoly. It's contestable in the sense that there are lots of smaller courier firms that operate often at a level of the local town or the city, and they often provide bespoke services, perhaps business-to-business couriering, as opposed to business-to-consumer. But it's an oligopoly in the sense that the industry is dominated by a relatively small number of scale businesses. Top 5 firms have 75% in the market. And they operate, of course, with very high levels of scale and productive efficiency. I'm asking a question there. Is a contestable oligopoly the optimum market structure from a consumer welfare point of view? What do you think? Here's the growth of the industry, and I suppose 2020 is the reason for showing this chart. So the industry has been growing for a long time, as you can see. But look at that growth in 2020. Obviously must have been driven by the the rise in e-commerce and online buying and deliveries because of the pandemic. What was the percentage change in parcel volumes between 2019 and 2020? Have a quick go at that one. And if you've pressed the pause button, you'll want to know the answer. I think it was 34%, plus 34%. So in other words, online parcel volumes increased by a third in the space of a year. Staggering. Just looking at the UK, 160 parcels per second in 2020, or 14 million parcels per day. On average, 74 parcels per person in 2020. Now, is your figure higher or lower than that? Mine is higher for sure. And one of the really good example of derived demand, and one of the consequences of this growth of online e-commerce delivery has been the rise in demand for and production of cardboard, as well as plastic packaging. Here we go. This is cardboard production worldwide from 2015 to 2020, including a sort of 10% increase from 2020 to 2022. You'd expect the revenues of the industry to go up, and indeed they have, but again, the surge in 2020-21, these are financial years. So parcel shipping in the UK is now a £14 billion industry, more than double the size of what it was in 2013-2014. The Royal Mail is a big part of this. The Royal Mail, as you probably know, was privatised, and that took place in three parts. The majority of the company was sold in 2013, so it moved from being a state-owned company to being a public limited company. Indeed, 10% of the shares were allocated to employees, which is quite interesting from an industrial relations point of view. The business was fully privatised and was sold completely in 2016, the three parts to it. And in the end, it raised about £3.5 billion. The money was used to reduce the national debt by a little bit. Royal Mail PLC now is listed as a stock market company on the FTSE index. And of course, you've got Royal Mail, which delivers letters and things, and you've got Parcel Force, which delivers parcels. Just a quick thing about ownership. I'm always intrigued by this, who owns what. And it just thought it'd be quite interesting just to look at this. I've taken a selection of parcel businesses. Hermes, you've probably heard of, owned by the Otto Group, which is the world's biggest mail order delivery business. DHL, huge business, which is a subsidiary of Deutsche Post. DPD, we're going to mention those a bit more. That's one of my favourite businesses. 222 uses DPD. That's wholly owned by Francis Laposte. Royal Mail, of course, state-owned, privatised. Now a public limited company. TNT Express, that's owned by FedEx now. There was a merger in 2015, I think. UK Mail is owned by Deutsche Post. Yodel is privately owned by the Barclay brothers. What's interesting from this chart is the pivot. So for many, many, many years, the Royal Mail generated much more revenue from letters than it did from parcels. But can you see here that the income from letters has been declining year on year, often by quite big percentages, fell to 3.5 billion in 2021. And of course, this is a long-term decline in the volume of letters sent. I sent a letter yesterday, but the first time it's happened in months. I had to think about how to do it. Yet, for Royal Mail, of course, look at that change in 2021. Suddenly, they are able to ride off the back of the parcel boom. So now for Royal Mail, the parcel revenue is well above the letters revenue. And letters make a loss, parcels make a profit. Amazon, of course, is the heart of this story. Don't forget, Amazon Logistics now has 15%, 15% of the UK parcel market business. They actually globally, they sold, this is for the States. There's an article from the New York Times. They sold 44% more items during the pandemic, but their costs only went up by 31%. And that's a really good example of an economy of scale. So the sheer volume of orders allows Amazon to improve their unit costs. They can run their warehouses closer to capacity. Their delivery drivers have full lorries. They make more stops. They can optimize every aspect from warehouse to final mile delivery. Amazon, of course, as a business, is one of those go-to examples of huge internal economies of scale. So we have an oligopoly. The Postal Service is an oligopoly, and one of the key features of that is high levels of interdependence. We can't stress this word enough in revision. Interdependence means that you have to think about how your rival firms, your competitors, will react to a change in price or non-price competition. Price comparison sites, of course, now allow people to access information on prices. So there is quite a bit of price competition. But I guess this is an industry where non-price competition, including product differentiation, is absolutely key in driving revenues and market share. I just did a quick search on a price comparison site about delivering a parcel and the costs and things. And you can get a feel here for the prices, next day delivery, all that kind of stuff. And increasingly, of course, you pay a little extra if you want something delivered immediately, or timed delivery. So there's a lot of competition in the market. You might want to have a look at these kind of things. You can go into a price comparison site and do your own little exercise, and I'd certainly encourage you to do that. Crucially, I think the key in an oligopoly is the depth and the scale of non-price competition. And this is a market where product differentiation is important. Providing different services to customers. So things like same-day delivery now is becoming more common, or delivery before 11 a.m. or before a certain time. That's quite key. So too, people want to know about tracking and security services. They might want to tamper-proof packaging, for example, if they're business to business. They might want to be offered insurance for any failed or misdirected courier delivery. The ability to select a specific date and time to match their own lifestyles, including working from home. The extent to which businesses offer the same price delivery to anywhere in the UK, even though the marginal cost of delivery might be very different. The availability of parcel locker networks for secure collection. Printing at home labelling for those sending packages to friends and relatives and things. So there's a lot of product differentiation in the market. And this is a list of factors that consumers consider when sending parcels in 2020-21. Highest amongst them, guaranteed delivery to the recipient's door. I'll say amen to that. And also, crucially, proof of receipt and delivery, proof of postage and dispatch. Another aspect of this industry, so we're going quite quickly through this, apologies, but I'd like to get through this with a good pace. Another area the examiners might focus on, could easily, is externalities. Because this is an industry which is growing very quickly, and there are significant environmental aspects to think about. Not least, increased traffic congestion on major roads and roads around towns and cities from the waves and waves of delivery vans. The externalities from plastic and other packaging waste is quite an important idea. A few years ago, you'd order a film, a DVD, and it would arrive in a box that you could fit a saloon car in. I'm sure that's now changed. But there is a big issue to do with what happens with all the cardboard and all the plastic that these delivery firms are wrapping the products in. And likewise, of course, emissions from vehicles, although we'll come to that point in a second. The parcel industry is not a free market. There are lots of ways in which government intervention is impacting on parcel companies, and you might want to think about how you would show this using supply and demand analysis or cost and revenue curve diagrams. So, for example, whether these companies have to participate with a carbon trading scheme. What would the impact of a carbon tax be? The UK government's brought in a plastic packaging tax of £200 per tonne. That will definitely affect some of these businesses. I did a separate video, by the way, evaluating that tax, which you can find on the YouTube site. All these businesses, thousands of vans and lorries and things, don't forget, all conventional petrol and diesel vans are banned in the UK from 2030. That's having a big effect. And many towns and cities, including Birmingham and Leeds and London, are trending towards ultra-low emission zones in cities. So that's quite a big catalyst for these companies to invest in low-emission vehicles. The whole debate is interesting from an evaluation point of view, the debate about the impact of deliveries on emissions. The evidence seems to be, I've taken this from Vanarama, so they have a vested interest, that emissions per shopping trip are much higher than from home delivery. So, according to Vanarama, God bless them, the average trip to the nearest high street is about 12.8 miles, 4.3 kg of CO2. The average home delivery is 50 miles, but many package drop-offs. So, if you cut the miles between each delivery point, if you optimise that, it does reduce the carbon footprint. So you could make a case for saying that home deliveries may actually be more environmentally friendly. Especially, I guess, if these companies are now using these low emission vehicles. DPD is a great company. I love this company, really fascinating. It's a big player, but it's actually relatively small compared to Amazon and DHL and the Post Office, the Royal Mail. DPD does have quite big claims for sustainability. And just back in the summer of 2021, they became the first company in a city, it was Oxford, to have an all-electric vehicle system. So all future parcel deliveries in Oxford will be made with only electric vehicles and from a state-of-the-art eco depot. Here is their green credentials: electric vehicles, measuring air quality, circular economy, trying to reduce waste, and trying to use green packaging where they can. Quite a few of these parcel companies are making significant environmental investments, and I think that's partly driven by the government, but also driven by the fact that this is good as a business. It's good for profit. Amazon, of course, huge player, enormous firm, and they're now the world's largest corporate buyer of renewable energy. And of course, as a vertically integrated company, they're buying a lot of their energy themselves. So they're generating energy themselves through huge solar farms and other setups. I just want to say a little bit to finish with about labour markets. So sometimes you can get a labour market question on the paper one. And I think this is a good industry to look at. The parcel delivery industry creates hundreds of thousands of jobs. And of course, the increase in online retail and delivery has increased the derived demand for drivers, warehouse workers and others. In many ways, this has actually created an even bigger shortage of HGV drivers. Many people who used to drive HGV, lorries and things who had a license to do that, have left this sector instead to drive vans for the couriers, including Hermes and Amazon Logistics. I think the evidence is that most of the drivers in the sector are self-employed. Not all, but most. Some operate on 0 hours contracts, be aware of that. And the wage you get is clustered at around the minimum wage. It depends on how you measure the hourly wage rate. The courier companies, of course, the big ones are, including Amazon, which basically outsources its delivery to smaller firms. They are monopoly employers, and very few delivery drivers are trade union members. The average salary for a delivery driver is around £10 an hour. I went to PayScale and just did a quick check, and it came at a bit lower, £9.43 an hour. Obviously there's bonuses, there's commission, there's profit sharing and things, but this is a low paid job. They're key workers delivering those tests and delivering, what have you, vaccines to vaccine centres. They're key workers, but it's a low paid occupation, and you might want to think about the economics of that. And there's lots of stories in the newspapers about the likes of Amazon. Here's a story from The Guardian, which was in March 2022. And there's a story about Amazon relying on a network of thousands of drivers. They manage them through delivery service providers, so basically contract out. And they're self-employed, so they have no right to holiday pay, sick pay, or the living wage. The pay rates can vary, seasonality. Drivers must also pay costs such as insurance, van rental and maintenance. But they get a little bit of contribution for fuel, but it doesn't really cover the fuel prices. So life as a delivery driver can be extremely tough, long hours for low pay. And this is an important issue when you think about the overall cost of the delivery of the things that you want. There seems to be almost like an insatiable desire to have stuff delivered the next day. It's become part of our consumer experience. But it's not free in the sense that resources are used up, and there's a human cost to think of as well. Well, there we go. Hopefully, this little look at parcel deliveries, the parcel industry, will allow you to showcase your knowledge of this industry if you get an exam question. Really interesting. Oligopoly, big players, lots of competition, but lots of environmental and labour market issues as well. As always, huge thanks for joining in. I hope you found these industry profiles useful. I'll try and do a couple more. I'm going to be moving on to country profiles for the macro paper after paper one's out of the way. But for now, thank you for joining me. Stay safe, stay happy, stay positive, and hopefully see you again sometime soon. Bye.